And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Benched with Bubba, episode 631. Going to wrap up our AL Central team previews with the Cleveland Guardians. And in order to help me break down this fun team that has my favorite catcher in baseball on it and much, much more, you can find them over at the High Stakes Heat podcast. Yes, they dusted off the mics this weekend. They were back in action. You can find them on Twitter at the Dust Mite. Jake Halusker, how we doing, my friend?
I'm really great, Bubba. Thanks for having me on. I've been listening to your show since I started listening to podcasts, so it's pretty cool to be talking to you live here. Nice of you to bring on another, mostly just guy on Twitter to talk about my favorite team. But yeah, we're back on the mic
Yeah,
finally, and it feels good to be doing something that's actually being recorded.
yeah, no, you because that's the thing is you guys are always busy doing fantasy stuff, but real life gets in the way of everything else. So it's good to see you guys, like I said, dust it off and have some fun chatting up you and Dave McDonald. So that'll be fun to see when that one drops. And yes, how long have you been a Guardians fan? I'm guessing your whole life.
Yeah, we Clevelanders, we don't tend to leave or lose our fandom. I was raised with it, so
Yeah,
and I moved back here after school. So yeah,
awesome.
it's pretty ingrained in us as your Gigantes are for you.
Yes, yes, born and raised, and you just kind of you're dealt the hand you're dealt type situation.
Yep.
Are you at least a Cleveland Browns fan for the weekend?
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a fun
Good.
weekend. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. It should be a pretty good game for us unless something tragic happens. So
Yeah,
I'm
should be
looking
a
forward to hopefully seeing a win tomorrow.
Should be fun. Flacco has been electric, so that's been good stuff. Talking Guardians though, 2023. This doesn't have to be a fantasy perspective, but before we get into the fantasy chatter, as a Guardians fan, how is your takeaway from the season? I know they're always kind of expected to be towards the top of the Central. Didn't end as planned, I guess. But how do you think it went overall?
Um, yeah, disappointing that the organization pretty much gave up on the season at the first trade deadline and then said at the waiver deadline, "Oh yeah, well, hey, since we don't have to spend any money really on these guys, we'll try and like actually sneak into the playoffs." If only they had used some of the prospect depth that they had to actually like try to win, we probably could have made the playoffs. So
Yeah,
it is disappointing. Ownership is continually disappointing for us. Uh, it just it sucks to see other teams being able to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in an offseason and we sign Austin Hedges.
yeah. Like I was gonna say, as a Giants fan, I understand, but no, I think you actually have it little worse in that regards because I was referring to watching the hundred millions of dollars get spent. But
Yeah.
yeah, I feel for you guys sometimes, like J Ram, and we'll talk about these guys. So it's at least they're still contending, but it's one of those like the management's doing just enough to keep it entertaining, but not entertaining enough, which is so much fun.
Yeah, they're renovating the stadium though this year, Bubba. So, they're
So
bringing us back in.
all those
Yeah.
ticket sales
Yeah.
from the team on the
That
field.
the things that actually pay the contracts, right? Not the TV. Oh yeah, by the way, we still don't have a carrier for our games. So,
Oh, were you one of the
now
Ballies
we're
people?
one of the Bally's, yeah.
Oh,
So,
Jesus.
we're still languishing here. So, they're not going to sign anybody this offseason either.
God,
So,
unbelievable. That's just wild stuff. But
yeah.
hopefully things get better someday. It's one of those, hopefully new ownership shows up someday. There's a bunch of teams that need that in a lot of
There's
sports.
always hope. Yeah.
Yeah, always hope. But let's talk Cleveland Guardians for 2024 from a fantasy perspective. And we'll start with the hitting side of things as we do. And we will start up top with J Ram, Jose Ramirez. Just an absolute beast, one of the more consistent players, getting older and, maybe stepping back in a couple categories here and there, but as a whole, still a beast when it comes to fantasy baseball. And over the last 15 drafts, ADP of around 14. What's
Hmm.
your thoughts on J Ram? Are we still good with like, hey, plug him in, be happy with it? Or are you concerned with anything you're seeing?
I mean, he's the king of Cleveland. He's our favorite son right now. I'm not terribly concerned. Yeah, you mentioned he's getting older. He's going to be 32 during the season this year, but he hasn't really slowed down speed wise or power wise. Last year was a bit of a drop off, but I'm not really concerned with any of the metrics. His hard hit percentages were still fine. They were in line with everything. Home run for fly ball was down a hair, so there might be a little bit of an uptick coming from that. Swinging strike rate's still great. I mean, not elite across the board, but he's as damn solid as you get across the board. And I have no like I was taking him at 3 and 4 last year.
Hmm.
I've already gobbled up a couple shares in my early drafts at the back end of the first round, and I'm going to continue to do so. I got nothing to worry about with him. Your RBI numbers might be a little down compared to other guys you're going to take in that echelon, but I mean, he does everything and doesn't hurt you anywhere. So I'm still on the train.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love JRAM, and I was with you as well. Like the last X amount of years, it's been like a at worst top five pick, if not three, four.
Yeah,
You just take that comfortable five categories, plug it in. Dude's got a chance at 30 some years when things run well. Like that's pretty outstanding
hmm
stuff. So
he
yeah, I'm
rarely
with
takes a
you.
day off. Like he's always out there
Yeah,
every season.
yeah, it's beautiful. So I'm with you. I have no problem with JRAM going forward. Stephen Kwan, on the other hand, is a conundrum depending on who you talk to in the fantasy world. Some people believe that this is like the next batting average OBP guy that can run and score 100 plus runs. Other people are concerned about him not being able to get on base. Like, well, OBP wise, yes, batting average, not so much type deal. So when you look at Stephen Kwan, where does he sit in that facet for you? Because right now, ADP of 205 seems pretty darn cheap if he can produce what most think he can.
It is cheaper than last year, and I was one of those guys that kind of expected him to hit 300, but not
Mhm.
do much more than 10, 20. And frankly, at that range, I like to look elsewhere. I like to get more out of counting stats and power production at that point because I'm taking a lot of average and speed guys early. So I really don't like to keep compiling those stats in the middle rounds. And frankly, our park, Progressive Field, is not exactly hitter friendly. So I don't know if he's ever going to have that elite batting average season. He'll always be pretty solid, but I don't know if I would ever expect more than, you know, 8 to 10 homers and 20ish steals. And when you're getting 50 RBI, hitting, I don't know, 285, 290, that's just kind of meh. And I'm not really interested, frankly. He's probably pretty much crossed off my list unless he drops a lot. And it's possible that he could because other people probably have a very similar opinion.
Yeah, he's gone as low as 248 over the last 15 drafts,
hmm
so could drop a bit. I still don't know if that's right because, like you said, is last year five homers, 21 steals. Like that's basically a steals and a maybe runs guy with a little bit of an average, which doesn't do it for you. Like you can get
Right.
three categories guys farther down the board, as you're saying. Obviously, roster construction, getting stolen bases earlier and batting average earlier. You don't even need Stephen Kwan. Like Lars Nootbaar's going around him.
hmm
You have Christopher Morel, Dalton
A lot
Varsho.
of a lot of good outfielders in that range. Yeah.
Exactly. So you can definitely pick your battles elsewhere, which makes a ton of sense in that
The
regard.
the average helps. He gets a lot of plate appearances and a lot of at bats, and he doesn't walk a whole hell of a lot. So he's going to give you help in average if he's hitting 285. But is it worth passing on a guy like Nootbaar, who's going to probably hit third for the Cardinals and give you a lot of counting stats? Is it worth passing on a guy like Morel that could be, despite his contact issues, a hell of an electric player for you?
Yep.
I just don't. I don't see why taking Kwan over any of those guys makes sense.
Totally makes a lot of sense to me what you're saying. Andres Gimenez, this is a guy that I know I've kind of been in a, it feels like a minority at times, could be wrong, but I've always liked the talent. Now, the ADP's obviously coming up there with Jimenez at 108, but this is a guy that last year, 1530, year before 1720. Batting average dropped last year, but I think he's more of a 250, 260 guy. Anyways,
Yeah.
the 297 was awesome. But I'm pumped if I can get 1530 or 1525, which I think is in the realm of possibilities for guys turning 25. So, what's your thoughts on Andres Gimenez this season, and is that price too high though for his talent?
I don't know. I think it's pretty solid. He's a little cheaper this year than last. And yeah, I hate it depends on roster construction, but it does. If
Hmm.
if you can't stomach getting bad batting average from a middle infielder that you're taking that high, I get it. But I can see if you drafted a good amount of average early and you just wanted a pretty well-rounded player that's going to score a decent amount of runs. He's going to score probably 80 to 85. He's going to knock in probably 70-ish. He could end up popping 20 with some good batted ball luck, and you can have a nice 20-30 player that maybe hits 260. If he's hitting 20 homers, he's probably hitting 260, 265. I think that's perfectly fine. Second base isn't the best position in the world, so
Mhm.
if he's your guy because you built your roster well, I see no problem with it. Now, will I have a lot of him? Probably not, but he's definitely somebody that I would consider if it fit my team.
Yeah, for me, it's been tough because last year I felt like I had more of him than I'm having this year. But I think it's like you said, the roster construction where he's going, I'm going more maybe a pitcher or something else in my builds, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
it's like I could go Gimenez at 108, or I can wait. And I know they're different players and there's different ceilings to each, but like Geloff and Thyro, if I want power speed,
hmm
not the same as Gimenez, but we're talking 30, 40 picks later in those regards, so you can do different things. And that's obviously why we draft early, is to try to see where we like those angles. But I think that's maybe what's taking me off of him right now. And that's not saying he's not worth taking, but it's definitely to your roster construction comment on that one.
I'm just like you. I'm pretty heavy pitching where he's going. I'm offense early. I
Yep.
love that like third tier of starters.
Hmm.
So I'm not in a position to draft him like you said
Yep.
very
Yep.
often.
Same boat there. Let's go to Josh Naylor, a guy I am a big fan of. 121 games last year, 122 the year before. He's always got a little bit of an injury issue, it seems like.
hmm
But there's power. He showed some more speed last year. Maybe the new stolen base environment helped. The average was much higher than usual, and that should come down. But the part I wanted to mention, as you should probably know, is he is a phenomenal contact guy.
Yeah,
So
he
the
is.
average could come into play, just maybe not to that level. So what's your thoughts on Josh Naylor? Because now this year people have caught on, obviously, and you have to
Mhm.
pay a 130 ADP for him now.
Right. I had a lot of Naylor last year, and I love having him on my real life team because I would hate to play against him just because he would
Yes.
piss me off so fucking much. But
Oh yeah.
uh, he's great to watch. I love his intensity. It is a little pricey. I mean, I like him, but there's so many first basemen that I like this year that I haven't taken him yet, and honestly, I think there's a couple guys that I like that go after him a little bit better. Um, but as you mentioned, he's for average. I mean, if you want average from your corner or your first baseman, he's a pretty good bet for a solid 285 to 290. He probably won't hit 308 again, but he could. I
Mhm.
mean, he's got a plus 90% in zone contact. I mean, his contact rate overall is way above average for MLB. So, and the hard hit is pretty solid. The swinging strike rate is below average. I just you're not probably going to see him ever hit more than 25 homers, which kind of sucks.
Yep.
But if he goes 10 steals and 20 homers, it's not bad. It's just it's kind of in the middle. I probably don't see myself having much of him. I don't have one now just because he's a little bit more expensive and there's so many first basemen.
Yeah, I'm with you. It was nicer when he was like 100 picks later last year as your corner infielder. That was really
hmm
cool.
Yep.
You mentioned we just did our first base preview pod with Bloomfield, and there's a lot to like after Naylor. And I have no spite against Naylor. That's so, like you said, on your real life team. Yeah, I wouldn't want to face him either because he pissed me like just the
Yeah.
hair going crazy, the trash talking, and if he was on my team, I'd love it, obviously. So it's just a good real life player, not bad in fantasy, just not at this ADP.
Yeah. Just to I man got him in the main last year at like round 18. Oh, it's so
Yeah.
sweet.
That's what I'm saying. Now that's very doable. That's
Yeah.
very doable. His brother, on the other hand, Bo Naylor, I know I might be over my skis on how excited I am about this guy, but I love the way he finished the season. Like we saw power, we saw
hmm
speed, we saw great skills at the plate as he got more comfortable up there. Should be the everyday guy. He's got an ADP around 160. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I'm 100% cool with that. But what are your thoughts on Bo Naylor?
I'm gonna be overloaded like you, and it might not be the best idea because I know Hedges is there, and
Hmm.
they love Austin Hedges. They went out and overpaid for his ass to bring him back again just because they love his clubhouse presence. And I know that's the stupid cliche, but they really do love everything about the guy's personality. They love the way he manages the pitching staff. They love how he just works so closely with those guys. And there were articles put out while he was here in local press about just how much the pitchers rave about how he handles them in game, out of game. I know they're gonna play Hedges more than you would want.
Damn.
But that said, I'm still drafting Bo Naylor because he still could go 2015
Oh yeah.
playing 65% of the games. And that's all I care. I mean, I don't want necessarily, I don't need my catcher 2 or even catcher 1 if I take him that late and back him up real quick. I don't need them to get 600 plate appearances. If I get anything solidly positive out of my catcher 2, which he will be a lot of the time, then I'm great. I'm happy. He might not hit above 250, but if he's going 15, 10, or even a little more than that, then I'm pretty happy overall.
Yeah, he'd be a phenomenal catcher too. I'd be all over that. Like I was saying before, I think he's kind of what everyone wanted Dalton Varsho to be, is who Bo Naylor could be. That's me. Again, maybe overthinking things with him, but I'm very optimistic. And yeah, it's good to hear it from you, at least on the Austin Hedges thing. Because every time I see a veteran defensive catcher get signed, it's always annoying. Like my goal is maybe they give him to like Logan Allen, who had control issues, and be like, hey, he's your every fifth day, and then
that sounds plausible.
And then let Bo Naylor catch 4 out of the 5. Like, I'm cool with that. That'd be ideal, but you're probably right. With so many young pitchers, it's just like they probably will find a way to put Austin Hedges out there.
I'm entirely convinced they want him to join the major league staff as soon as he retires, which hopefully is this year, like in April. But they fucking love the guy. And I know they want to make him a coach. And this is essentially what it is. He's going to be a coach that's going to play occasionally and hit 160 because he sucks ass. But
it's Jake Taylor. It's the real life Guardian story. It's the real life story.
And all,
yeah. No, and the one thing I will say for like if people listen to Chris Rose rotation or whatever, Hedges sounds like a great dude. Just when you talk to him, like people and like a good teammate and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we're talking, we want to be competitive in real life baseball. Not the answer. That's for damn sure.
He's the player coach for sure.
Yes, 100% player coach that takes some Pete Rose tips and bet on the team. Ramon Laureano came over midseason in a trade. Ramon Laureano is like an enigma to fantasy people. Is we know there's power, we know there's speed, we know there's a mediocre batting average. We also know he can't stay healthy, or he's going to piss someone off and get suspended, or there's something that he's going to do, and that's why he's got an ADP of 465. So. Is there any interest in that price, or just like I don't want the headache of trying to deal with Ramon Laureano?
I don't want to say no because there's
a possibility.
He still is, and they paid him a lot of money. Like this team who doesn't spend any money brought this guy in off the scrap heap from Oakland, and he didn't really do a lot for us last year. It was very mediocre, if not below mediocre, and they still picked up his option and paid him. I don't know, man. I hate that he's like right in the middle of our lineup. I don't care for the dude. His defense has even gone downhill a little bit. You know, he used to be the elite defender. It's not as much anymore. His out of zone contact is so bad. His zone contact is fine, but he swings so much out of the zone and misses it all the time. He's below 50% out of the zone contact. I just like, ugh. He's just so gross to see that he's like probably going to hit 5th for this team right behind Naylor. And it's just so depressing. So will I draft him? Probably not, because I'm guaranteeing that he's going to get hurt at some point this year anyway.
Yeah.
Or he'll just suck so hard that they eat the sunk cost and jettison him.
That's fair too.
It just depresses me to see him hitting above Bo Naylor, but you know he's going to. Because,
he's going to 100%.
There's some hope for new manager Stephen Vogt, who's pretty analytically inclined and also very young and progressive. So, hopefully that if he struggles pretty soon out of the gate, they're not going to be too slow to move him down the order. But
Vogt also knows him from Oakland, so maybe there's something there too. Maybe he like sometimes it takes a teammate or a former teammate to talk to a guy and say, "Hey, get it together. Let's go, kid."
That's entirely possible.
So I'm just trying to put every optimistic angle to it, basically, because we've seen Laureano be so damn good. Like there was the year he was like compared to Tommy Pham when Tommy Pham was still good. And now it's one thing after another. So it'd be crazy to see him go. Last year it wasn't bad because once he got like suspended or whatever, people just dropped him. So you can play waiver wire stream with him. And you're like, okay, I can live with that with Laureano. But having to draft him and know he's on your roster, you have to decide when to cut him. That's never fun.
He's
So,
in a 15-team fab league, it's not too bad because you're barely
true.
paying for him. But in a DC, he's not a guy I want to roster just because I know he's going to
It's
be
a
hurt at
headache.
some point.
Yep.
And outfielders, it's a battle of attrition with starting pitching and outfield. So I don't like to take injury-prone outfielders that much. But
Good point.
there is hope. You're right. I hope Stephen Vogt knocks some sense into him because he's not even, like you said, he's not even 30 yet.
Yeah, that's how.
Come on,
That's one of the.
together.
That's one of the most entertaining things when I do these team previews. There's always one or two guys I look at the age and I'm like, what? Like they're either way too old or still young. Like Loran feels like he should be like 35, but he's maybe 29 years old this year. So he's like not even. There's a lot of game in there if you didn't break it all yet. Kyle Manzardo, I got to ask because we know the trade came over from Tampa Bay. This is for Savali. He went to the AFL, played phenomenal. But now there's the reports coming out because they picked up De Los Santos on the Rule 5 that Manzardo likely is looking more towards a AAA start to the season than a big league start. Obviously, a lot can change. What are your thoughts on this? Because some people are all in on Manzardo. Maybe is he still worth the draft and hold target at that point? Or is this like, hey, it might be a while? Because De Los Santos has a ton of power too, but it's more of a kind of sunk average.
It's a swing and miss thing. Yeah. I mean, that Rule 5 pick shocked us because it's not a pick that the Guardians make. They don't draft offense in the Rule 5 draft. They don't really draft anybody in the Rule 5 draft that often other than relief pitchers that they hope can do something. So it was really shocking to see us take a guy that they are going to have to carry on their bench all year with that kind of profile because we like contact guys. That's what we do. So I really hope it doesn't keep Manzardo in the minors, but I guess that's possible. I'm really excited to see what he can do because we knew the guy wasn't right last year mentally because of all the issues with his mom, and he talked about it as such. And he came over to the Guards, and power wise, he was pretty solid. He had 6 homers and less than 100 ABs in AAA for us. But what I was just happy to see him play in the AFL and swinging freely and talking to the media and just not having the performance issues that he had in Tampa that kind of ushered him out the door hang over him after the season was over. It really looks like he's going to be a big part of this team, but I can't guarantee it's going to be right away because there's always the chance that the Guardians start with the Tyler Freeman, Gabe Arias, rando platoon at first base, which, I kind of like Gabe Arias as a bench bat, but Tyler Freeman has shown nothing to us.
Yeah.
We have a lot of middling offensive prospects. We don't have a lot of like blow off the doors offensive guys, and it would be a real shame if they didn't start with Manzardo on the team because why wait? Like, why mess around with this one right now? You need the thump in your lineup. You need to see what this kid is because you gave up a major league starter for him last year. So I'm really hoping they're not stupid and keep him down. That said, is he draftable? I have drafted him, so I guess I consider him to be draftable.
There you go.
Why is he not on the Guardians ADP list that I have pulled off? I know he's going around 310-ish.
It's 330 over the last 15. Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's weird. He must be listed as a free agent on NFBC or something. Or Tampa.
Still under Tampa Bay. I just noticed that when you said that. Yeah. There's a few guys like Drew Thorpe still under New York. That always throws me off. Like, am I drafting the right Drew Thorpe?
It's like I'm looking at the list. Why the hell isn't he here? Okay, so I have drafted a couple shares because it's in a 15-team league. It's a 21st round pick, 22nd round pick. That's fine. In a DC, he's going to be up for at least 4 months of this year. So I'm cool with it because you need depth everywhere and. He's not going to be down all year. They're not that stupid. They showed that they will bring up prospects as they did with the pitchers last year. So I'm not too worried that they're going to keep him down for long, but they might not start the year with him. And in a fab league, it's a tougher draft. But we'll have a lot more clarity when we're drafting a lot of our fab
100%.
leagues. I'm doing 150 OACs, online auction championships, and the price point is so low that I'll still take the shot on Manzardo because you're dropping a lot of your post 20 round picks the first few weeks anyway. So why not?
How many online champions auctions have you already done?
Just one, because there haven't been many yet. I only did one. I bought the 3-pack this year, and that's all I'm doing. I am an auction guy, but I don't like online auctions as much as live ones. So
okay,
but I decided to do a couple more of those this year than I did last year.
I'm gonna dip my toe in them for the first time, and then I'm gonna buy a 3-pack also. So I'm
It
looking
is
forward to it.
the software is a lot better than it was a few years ago, and I'm very pleased with it now. Auctions are so much fun, Bubba. You're gonna love it.
That's what everybody keeps saying. Like, and then I talked to like Lucas. I've talked to you off the air, and heard you talk about it with Dave and stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, this seems like the jam, folks. Like it seems like
Just
it's necessary.
have your multiple monitors, have your ducks in a row, and be on the trigger finger all the time. Because on the online auctions, if somebody throws somebody out for $1, you got to be ready with two. When
Yeah,
you're getting down to the end of
goes
it. But
goes
yeah,
quick.
yeah, it's a lot of fun though.
All right, back to the Guardians here, and yeah, and I'm with you. Like they traded Savali with years of control left, so they better put Manzardo out there. But a couple others, like I don't have a whole lot more on the starting. Like they have Rocchio at shortstop, Miles Straw still hanging around. Is there any fantasy relevance to any of these guys?
Well, Miles Straw, of course. No, I'm kidding. Rocchio is pretty blah. I don't think Rocchio is ever going to give you anything in terms of much. He's a bottom of the order bat that had strikeout issues in the majors last year, big time, and that was actually kind of surprising because in the minors it wasn't nearly that bad. He was a very low K guy in the minors, so he'll give you some average. Hitting at the bottom of this lineup, though, what's he going to give you? 60 runs and 50, even if he's playing the whole season, which he should because he is their best shortstop prospect that they have that's major league ready right now. But uh, it's not even worth it in a DC to me, honestly. I like to get a little more upside with anybody that I'm taking late. I guess if you need a warm body, but I wouldn't bother. He's not even going that late because people know he's going to start the year in the lineup, so he's going before 500. So at that point, I'm not even considering it. Will Brennan showed that he's just kind of mediocre last year. I don't think there's much hope. I mentioned, we can talk about De Los Santos. He's going so late in DCs that why not?
Yeah.
This dude, if he finds his way into the lineup somehow, he's got 30 homer pop easy.
728 ADP.
Yeah, I mean he's nothing. So if you want to take him in the 48th round, I would endorse it because, I mean, how many prospects that you get that are going to be in the major leagues that could pop 30 if they're full time, even if it's with a 210 average. Who cares?
That's a great point. He has to be with the team, or they lose him back to
I love
Arizona.
drafting Rule 5 guys in DCs because at least you know that the team's going to keep them if because they wanted them. I mean, I'm not drafting relievers like the Guardian, like Holby Milner, like they used to take guys like that. But this dude, they have to see something in he must be fitting into their strategy a little bit if they're going to carry him all year. So
makes a ton of sense. With on that.
Yeah.
All right, let's head to the mound. Where last year in fantasy, there seemed to be a prospect every week coming around, and the Guardians helped at least 3 different times with that. And we'll start with the big one, or I guess the one that came up first. That's when Tanner Bibee. This guy was just amazing. The ratios were great. What I saw from the first to second half improvements were great. Especially the way they ended the season was pretty nice from Tanner Bibee. But you got to pay for it. We got an ADP of where did he just go? An ADP of 109 right now, or the last 15.
Yep.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on Bobby? Because I know I'm a fan, but I want to hear your perspective on it. And is he worth the ADP?
I'm a fan too. I know there's a lot of people that are down on Bibee at this price just because of kind of the individual pitches might be a little more on the mediocre side. His fastball is solid, but didn't induce a lot of swinging strike that you would want last year. I think the change is very good.
And the
The slider is pretty solid, and the curveball sucks. But I look at him as the sum of the parts rather than the individual pieces. He's taking tools that are pretty solid, maybe not overwhelmingly solid, and he might have a little bit of control issue here and there. He does have hiccups with control, but in the minors that wasn't nearly as prevalent. So I think a year of working with Austin Hedges, player manager, I think he's primed for a step up. I'm not going to say top 3 round performance, but I'm very happy to take him on a few teams in the 7-8 round range as my SP2 because, well, I've already done it a couple times. I like the whole package. He already seems so polished, so unflappable. He doesn't wear his emotions on his sleeve on the mound. He doesn't get down. I know that's anecdotal stuff, but he really looks like he's all put together. And even though the the Sierra doesn't agree with his performance last year, I tend to put a little bit more stock into what I saw in the many times that I watched him.
Yeah, and I agree obviously with you. I dug in on him. I saw the pitches and just such a heavy fastball guy that's not a good fastball. Like you said, if he just upped the changeup on the slider a bit,
Right.
just mix things up, my God, there could be a whole other level to at least the swing and miss abilities of Tanner Bibee. And then people might shut up a little bit about it because there are a lot of arguments as well. He want to be a sub-3 guy. Well, he probably won't be. You're probably right, but
Yeah.
he could be a 3-5 guy, and I'll be
Well,
totally
sure.
cool with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wouldn't be shocked if he was like a 3-3 guy because he's that good, like from things we saw. And I'll live with that if he can up the strikeouts a bit as well. So
Right.
I'm with you on him. And it's another one of those things is, at least for me, is like if I'm taking an early guy, I want to know he can give me innings, and he's going to give you. He could give you around a 170ish, give or take, based maybe even more, depending on what he did last year. So innings should not be a concern either, which is beautiful compared to some other guys you're talking about. So I love Tanner Bibee there.
157 last year. So there's no reason to expect he won't
180.
get to 180 if he's healthy. Yeah.
100%. So I think that's a fine one there. I'm glad we're on the same page there. Let's go to the next one. Gavin Williams, who another, some people actually, at least if I was listening to the right circles, thought he was better than Tanner Bibee in the minors.
Stuff-wise.
Yeah. So he kind of got the second call up here. He looked pretty good at times. They all had their hiccups because they're young, but he looked pretty good. His ADP is about 158. So how are we feeling about Gavin Williams?
I'm more worried about him. Not that I think he's going to be bad. I'm still worried that the control is going to be kind of subpar. He has a history of not always the best walk rates in the minors, and I don't see that improving a ton this year. If you worry about the peripherals and the underlying metrics with Gavin Williams on the ERA and the estimators and whatnot, his were worse than Bibee's last year. Their ERAs were pretty close, but he had a 461 Sierra in his 82 major league innings last year, which is way worse than Bibee's. That said, he's got more upside than Bibee. I mean, if his control gets down to maybe an 8% walk rate in the majors, he could be a top 5 round pick next year. He could be a top 15 starter. He has that stuff. It's just a matter of, can he not put guys on base? Contact rate is 74.5% on everything last year. So that and there's room for growth with that because the stuff is better than that. I probably will have more Bibee than Gavin Williams, despite Gavin being cheaper, though, just because that's kind of the range. My SP234, I like to have two of those guys be really
close
I
to
guess
elite.
I don't like them to have a wide range of outcomes, if that makes sense. I like them to 100%. Be a little more guaranteed in what I can expect from them. And then one of those guys, though, I will likely take a shot on. So I'll probably have 1 or 2 shares in my, 10, 12 leagues that I do this year.
No, I like that. That's really good to break it down like that because I see so many arguments that you at least, obviously, I heard the right things about Williams being potentially the better pitcher in the long run if it all puts together. But I do like that. I think what we saw with Bibee is who he is. If not, he could be better. So like you got that kind of quote unquote safety net potentially. And it goes back to where Bibee's going. That's why we're not drafting Andres Gimenez. It's that realm. It's that same ADP bucket. So that makes it tough. But yeah, I got to snag me some Williams. I don't think I have any yet, but I know I had a decent amount in Fab last year. So we'll see how that plays out.
That was better. I one more thing on him. I don't like guys that throw their fastball more than like 42%, 43% generally. And he threw his over 55% last year, which it's a good fastball. Don't get me wrong, but
that's not good.
He's got to mix it up a little bit more. The slider 22 and the curve 17 and the change was almost non-existent. So
it's a little too predictable.
I'd like to see it mixed up a little bit more. And player manager Austin Hedges.
I'd say, player manager Austin Hedges and Stephen Vogt, the combination of two catchers. You might get some stuff going. Catchers do make good managers as much as they want to make. They really know their stuff.
Don't tell that to Brad Ausmus though.
No. Yep, Bob Brindley. He'd like to talk to people too. Let's go to the third member of the 3-headed monster of young arms that came out of Cleveland last year, and that's Logan Allen. We got the lefty this time around, and he came with 125 innings in the bigs, 145 overall. Ratio ERA wise was good, but Mylanta, the walks and just other issues got in the way. It seemed like way more often than not. But
Yeah,
an ADP of 340. So, what are your
right.
thoughts on Logan Allen this year?
It's palatable. If you need innings at that point, it's not terrible. It's a good park. Should be a pretty solid defense. Gimenez is a Gold Glove caliber second baseman. The outfield is pretty solid defensively. So if you need innings at that late of the draft, it's not bad. I don't think there's a lot of upside for a top 50 starter or anything like that, though. He gets hit too hard and walks too many guys and doesn't strike out enough to to give me tons of hope that he's going to do better than, or much better than what he did last year, I should say. But you know, he is what he is. I think he's a okay guy, and you can play him in matchups. He is in a decent division to play some matchups, even though those offenses are getting a little bit better. So maybe not as much.
Yeah, definitely. That's why he was a frustrating one at times on the
Yeah.
rosters because everything else was pretty decent except for that whip, which just blew everything up at times.
Right.
So very, very tilting. Let's talk sticks. Tristan McKenzie, dynamite on the mound, went on the mound. He weighs about 25 pounds. And bright side is he finished the season on the mound. Now, good or bad, but he finished on the mound, which didn't look like it would be even possible at one point in time. So I think that's a definite positive. But is this a guy that we can look at taking around pick 240 with all these concerns right now?
The upside for much better is there. We were taking him in the 8th round last year. I shouldn't say we. I was way off just because of the health concerns that you mentioned. I had a ton of him when he was cheap. He had that nice 22, and then I was far away last year.
Yep, I was too.
He's listed at 165. I love that. I don't even think he's 165 with wet clothes.
I go to the old joke, soaking wet in his shoes, like not a chance.
Yeah. He is a lanky, stringy dude. He's so cool. Like, I love his personality. I love his ability. I just want to see him on the mound. And you're right. He finished the year on the mound, and the price is fine. Like, he's your SP6. I'm fine with that. If you didn't take 3 risky starters ahead of him, yeah, like, why not? What the upside is if he's on the mound, and if he's not on the mound, then he's not going to kill you to drop either. So this is a range that I think he's very palatable because what could be. I mean, that 21 or the 22 was a really good season.
Yes.
The ERA was amazing. The estimators were fine. He had a 25.6 K rate, and the whip was amazing. So what he can be. We just need to see him on the mound.
Yeah, it's a fun range. Like you said, SP6, you can take your chances. Emmett Sheehan, Christopher Sanchez, Brian Bayo, Charlie Morton, Yusei Kikuchi, all going right around him. So, like, he's probably the ceiling play in the whole group, but might be the riskiest in the whole group too.
Right. Sure. Yeah, I love Christopher Sanchez in that range too. I think I'm gonna have a lot of him this year too. But I'm not opposed to taking McKenzie at all. I have 1 share now. I think I'll probably have 2 or 3 more.
Yep.
He's another guy. He's a totally amazing auction target for me because
by getting super cheap, I'm guessing
you can get him super cheap, and I don't feel like his cost isn't going to hamstring me at all, and I'm fine using a roster spot on a guy because in auctions, you can't draft your reserves at all until you fill the whole roster. So you also think about how many slots you're filling of starting pitchers because then you can't add other guys that you like, and I like him enough that I would use a spot in a 7-man starting rotation for him.
Good point. All right, let's talk about the veteran. I'm not going to say ace, but no, the veteran of the Cleveland Guardians pitching staff. I guess he's technically still the ace.
Opening day starter.
Yeah, he will be. And they already said they probably won't trade him this offseason, so he will be the opening day starter. And that's Shane Bieber, who once was a perennial just beast, like almost 200 innings on lock, but the velocity's decreased, the contact's getting worse and worse. Still can surprise you, I'll say. And when you look at his in numbers, I was like, well, that was not nearly a sub-4 ERA. I would have lost a bet on that one. I'll tell you that right now. But didn't have a ton of innings either. So what are we thinking on Bieber? Because you got a 191 ADP right now.
It's so hard to know, but we know he is working at Driveline, and it's cliche, but
It's a good. It's an honest cliche these days, as much as we want to make fun of it.
Right. We've seen the results now, and
Yep.
we know the one thing, besides health, that Bieber was just missing last year was velocity. He was so far down in velo. The velo spike that he had at the end of 22 did not come back last year. He was down. His fastball was like 91.5. It was awful. It got pummeled. He was so hittable last year. He cannot exist without a 93 mile an hour fastball. Now, he's cheap enough now that you can take some shots early. I do have one share now, but I'm not overloading now. I want to see him in spring. I want to see him sitting 93. That's the only way that I'm going to be comfortable taking him in any big money leagues. But he's at Driveline. He's pitching now. He's healthy. He's working out there. We've seen guys add velo before because of what they do. And if they can get Bieber back to 93, 94 sitting there, he could be what he was, at least in 22. 22, he was a really solid pitcher for you. 200 innings, 198 Ks, no walks, sparkling ERA and WHIP. If he has the velo back, he can do that. And he even did some of that in 22 without the velo. So
yeah, true.
It's worth taking a shot early just because he's healthy and he's working out and he's at a place that could improve him to the point where you can really pay off on that pick. And that's how you win leagues. You pay off those mid-round picks and you're gold.
Yeah, no, see, this is why I love doing these shows and talking like player by player with people that pay more attention to the teams, because Bieber's one of those guys where it's just, I'm like, the velocity's so bad, I just don't even want to deal with him.
Yeah.
But then you mentioned valid points where I need to take my biases out of the picture there. And if he could go to Driveline and just get a little bit back, it goes back to the whole theory why sticks is even worth a discussion point, why certain guys are, because you're at that point in the draft now where you should have hopefully got your boring but safe stats in place. Let's start shooting off some bullets here and see what we can find. And Bieber is definitely a guy not far removed from a very quality season. Like, if Bieber can get back to close to 2022, why are we taking Chris Bassett and all those guys way ahead of Strain Bieber? Like, that's the grouping I would start to say. That's a big ADP difference. So yeah, that's a good point.
When Bieber's on, he's super Bassett. So just gotta, like I said though, if I'm doing a $1,500 league, $1,750 main, I ain't taking Bieber unless I see him in spring. And thankfully, those are at the end of March, and I can see plenty of him in spring.
Yes, because you need that ceiling play in those for sure. I'm with you there. In the bullpen, Emmanuel Clase, still the guy. Obviously, wasn't as dominant to many last year. Still walked away with 44 freaking saves, but the ratios weren't as ideal, and the strikeouts were done a ton. Like, innings and saves were great, but the overall production was a lot scarier with Clase. He's also getting rumored to be potentially traded these days. So what are we thinking right now with Clase going in? You'd hope he'd get traded to a team that wants a closer, but then again, the Dodgers are rumored, so who knows what the hell's going on.
Right. And Hader's still floating out there too for them. So I'm scared. I had a lot of Clase last year just because I loved how safe he was. I knew, like, Tito's loyal to a fault. And Clase blew like 8-9 saves last year. I don't remember offhand, but I know it was a lot. He was hittable at like half the year, like just incredibly.
12 blown saves. 12.
Oh my god! Holy hell! Like we've never seen Clase even remotely that bad, and it was all year. Because in the beginning, the velo was down, and we're like, damn, the velo's at 98. It should be at 101. He got it up a little bit. It progressively increased a little bit throughout the year, but the hitability just stayed all year. Like you meant, the strikeouts were way down, 21.2% from 28.4 the year prior. The whip was way up because he was just getting smacked around. He was walking more guys. I'm scared. You'd think though, if somebody's trading for him, they're going to close with him. I mean, he's on a really good deal. So
true.
Man, I mean, he's on a really good deal. So the Guardians aren't going to trade him unless they can really get something for him. But they're shopping the hell out of him.
Oh yeah, it'll be like Savali. We want you one of your top prospects. This is just how it's going to go if you want him.
I mean,
because that was the beauty of Savali. So freaking cheap. Like, it was ridiculous. So it made sense. Now the question I have for you, and this makes sense that they're shopping him, is they did something that the Guardians don't usually do, and they acquired the whole Barlow deal, which cost money. So how do we look at that? Like in a DC, are you maybe a little more interested in a guy like Barlow? Not just because of the Class A rumors, but just the fact you see a team like the Guardians spending that money, there you're going to want to utilize them as much as possible, like ideally.
Yeah, we were really shocked when we saw that because that's not a Guardians move to trade for relievers that are expensive. But in today's market, Barlow's not horrible. I think he's like $6.5 million or something this year off of
Sure.
ARB.
Giants just paid $11 million for Hicks, so yeah, you're right.
But he's a starter, Bubba.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my bad. My bad.
He's gonna go down the Mania train.
It's gonna be wild watching him opener, middleman. It's gonna be a freaking good thing Kapler's not there.
Yeah, Gabe's gone, so who knows? Yeah. What you got Melvin, right? Yeah, Melvin.
Melvin's a little more customary, so we'll see how that goes.
I do have a couple shares of Barlow. I took him in both of my fab leagues though, so not the DCs. Okay. He was my 30th round pick in both of my fab leagues, just in case Clausen gets traded. Yeah,
that's fair.
And I can drop him in March and move on. Yeah. So that's the kind of guy I like to take because there's a strong chance that Class A gets moved because, I mean, the deal is so good that somebody probably is going to pay up for him at some point in the next couple of years. If it's not this year, this off season, it's the trade deadline. It's after this season. I know that doesn't help us now, but I really do think the trade threat is real because the Guardians, they're not a team to continue to pay for relievers when they have so many of them in the minors. They have a ton. They have a ton of electric guys. Trevor Stephan could be a closer. Scott Barlow obviously can be a closer. He's done it before, and he was much better after going to San Diego last year. So, the fear is real. I don't have any Class A, and I probably won't, just because there are so many reliable closers, quote unquote, right now, that I'm not going to be spending a 4th, 5th round pick on Class A with. There's so many other guys that I like more. Just the strikeout upside alone is lower than most of the guys that are going in that range. Like you got Camilo Doval going right before him. Like, why would you not take Doval over Class A? It's easy. It's a slam dunk to me.
It's a good thing we don't draft in a lot of leagues because we're on the same. Like I had Class A on almost every single league last year.
Except for the meatball that you won.
Yeah, there you go. Because I should because I don't even like.
And I drafted Class A in that one, so I didn't let you have them.
Yeah, you didn't let me have it on that one. That's the only one we dance in. But I didn't. I have 0 Class A shares this year. Like I'm just not even in on them. Like you said, there's way too many concerns for me to put that draft capital behind him.
Tebow's gone, so who knows if Vogt's going to even be
100% true there
too, because he's not beholden to him.
It's true. It's another very good point. When we're looking at the prospect world, you already joked like Tyler Freeman that isn't worth it and this and that, but like Chase DeLauder got his cup of coffee at the AFL, showed some good stuff. There you got George Valera in the minors. People talk about him. I'm not a prospect guy, but I know these names. Is there anybody pitching, hitting wise that you see might come up this year? Because obviously your 3 main pitchers came up last year, but you still have some in the stockpile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, George Valera's stock has really fallen. It doesn't look like he's going to amount to much more than a quad A kind of guy. I haven't been drafting him. His season the last couple years was just really blah. Strikeout numbers are still bad for repeating AAA. Power was not where it should be. Most Cleveland people that follow the prospects are pretty down on Valera. They should have traded him years ago when he was much higher stock. John Kenzie Noel isn't too bad, but he's another guy that might be a one of the Guardians type of outfielders that kind of could be in the majors. Another quad A guy. I like DeLauder a lot. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're going to use him that much this year. He has very little experience in the upper minors, and the Guardians generally don't rush players like that. And he's not on the 40-man either, which. Makes it the guards have a few guys that really don't belong on a 40-man, so they can easily get rid of them. But I have a feeling, and DeLauder's not getting drafted late. He's going for something. 565. That's not too bad. But I don't honestly see him in the majors until maybe August. I feel like they're going to keep him. He barely played in Double-A last year.
Good point.
Now, granted, he's old. He's a college graduate, I believe. So he's. Well, maybe not great. And they might have drafted him as a junior, but he's going to turn 23 this year, so he's not that old. But I just feel like they're going to keep him down. I don't think they're going to rush him just because they have so many outfielders that are on the 40-man already. You still got Will Brennan, who's probably not even going to be in the majors because he has options left because of Florial that they acquired from the Yankees for some reason for Cody Morris. I don't know why we're wasting time with that guy that's never amounted to anything, but dude's 26. Like, can we give it up? I don't know why.
Guardians like those speedy outfielders, man.
They do. They like the guys that are just kind of barely hanging on to major league eligibility. Like, I don't know why. Juan Brito that they got for Nolan Jones from the Rockies, he's intriguing because he can play pretty much anywhere in the infield. He's got a little bit of pop, a little bit of speed, but he got caught a lot in the upper minors. But I think he could sneak onto the roster at some point in the second half of the season, maybe a little bit earlier if Rocchio struggles. He is on the 40-man, and they got him for Nolan Jones, who blew up, and they're probably going to give him a little bit of expeditious treatment just because of that, I would think. And he's not, he's not old, he's not young, he's 22, but he has some upper level experience. So I think you could see him up. Only one other guy. Everybody talks about Daniel Espino in our minor league pitching system, but Joey Cantillo is not injured, and he's got some pretty solid stuff. He just has bad control. Most of our other pitchers on the 40-man starter-wise are kind of blah, but Joey Cantillo could be somebody, some really good strikeout stuff in the minors. He just has a walk problem. I'm hoping that if we have a starter blowout, they don't do the Hunter Gaddis bullcrap again because he's terrible. I don't even remember what other garbage we have, but Xavier Curry too. Xavier Curry, he's a great swing man. I don't want to see him in the rotation like they did last year again. He gets blasted all over the yard. He's a Terry Mulholland at the end of his career kind of guy. Give him 3 innings to mop up. That's
wow. That's a rough one right there, folks. That's a rough one.
I love Grandpa Terry. He pitched for he's like
he was with the Giants for a long time too.
He was on the Indians, and he had the full gray hair and goatee and everything.
Yeah, he was before Jamie Moore's time, folks. Like, this was old school, like just 88 at his finest.
No, I like Joey Cantillo though. I think if you're going to take a shot on a Guardian starter, and he's not going super late, but he's 635 right now, so that's a pretty good shot. James Anderson, that bastard, took him for me in the Meatball League. I was
he's a good target then.
He likes our Guardian starters though.
Yeah, well, that's fair though, because it's the old adage is you guys have been able to develop pitching. Like, that's been one of the things.
In the majors, but in the minors,
you get them to the dance, and then you just gotta hope
player coach Austin Hedges is here.
There you go. RotoWare needs to make a players coach Austin Hedges shirt. Like, I'm telling you, it's too good.
When they sign him again, they used the picture of him from the clinching the postseason in 20 with the shirt off and the bottles of champagne. He was double fisting the champagne bottles with the goggles on, and that was the picture they used on the Twitter announcement.
Well, because he's a glorified cheerleader. That's what they signed him for.
A big-titted cheerleader. That's what he is, yeah.
See, like, literally the shirt could be itself. Hedges on the front just says player. On the back, have Votes picture says manager, and that's your shirt. Yeah. Player manager. You got it. There you go, RotoWare. Figure it out. All right, we're going to wrap it up there, Jake. Guardians, how optimistic are we this year?
Our division got better. It's still a really young team. It's certainly capable of 90 wins. Am I planning on it? No. I'd say they're a 500 team though.
Yeah, and
I'm not overly optimistic.
Well, that's the thing is most of these central teams, you say 500 with. That's what makes it And you guys, the Guardians, out of the 5 teams, likely I would like to say has the best pitching as a whole. So
probably.
So that's gonna,
if they're healthy though. You got Bieber and Sticks. Like, you need.
That's true.
You don't have a lot that's really impacting the minors that's ready.
That's true, because next up's Hunter Gaddis and Xavier Curry. So that's true. Good point. Good point on that one. We don't want to go there.
A couple that are further down, but they're not quite ready yet. And
maybe someone comes over. Maybe someone comes with Clase. Let's see if that works.
Yeah, could. Yeah, it's possible.
But all right, we're gonna wrap it up there. Why don't you let everybody know once again where they can find you, what you got going on now that the boys are back.
Yeah, you can listen to Dave and I on the Rotosaurus High Stakes Heat Pod. It's available everywhere. It's still on there, even though we hadn't had a show in a year and a half. We are back. We just got one in the can before this. It'll be posted probably before this one drops. You can find me at the Dust Mite on Elon Musk's side project, and that's about it. See me in the NFBC draft rooms.
I love it. I love it. Good stuff, Jake. It was a pleasure chatting with you tonight. We'll have to do it again sometime, and make sure everybody you follow him on the X, the Twitter, whatever you want to call it. But this was Bench with Bubba, episode 631, your 2024 Cleveland Guardians team preview. Catch you all next time.